couple of, our next, Mr. Royce of California, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to ask Ms. Williams of the Government Accountability a question, of the Government Accountability Office. Yesterday, ABC News reported during late night closed-door talks last month, negotiators for the House, Senate, and White House stripped out a measure to the stimulus bill that could have restricted the AIG bonuses. And ABC News goes on to say, last month the Senate unanimously approved an amendment to the stimulus bill aimed at restricting bonuses over $100,000 at any company receiving federal bailout funds. The measure, which was drafted by Senator Olympia Snowe, Republican, Maine, and Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat, Oregon, applied these restrictions retroactively to bonuses received or promised in 2008 and onward. But then the provision was stripped out during the closed-door conference negotiations involving the House and Senate leaders and the White House. A measure by Senator Chris Dodd, Democrat, Connecticut, to limit executive compensation replaced it, but Dodd's measure explicitly exempted bonuses agreed to prior to the passage of the stimulus bill. Here's the exact language, says ABC News, from Dodd's measure in the stimulus. Quote, the prohibition required under Clause I shall not be construed to prohibit any bonus payment required to be paid pursuant to a written employment contract executed on or before February 11th, 2009. Now, I didn't vote for the stimulus for this particular bill, but the point is that some Democratic members, those who controlled the conference committee, were aware of the potential for taxpayer dollars to be used for bonuses and went out of their way to protect those bonuses by a reading of the provision in the conference report here that says exactly that. So I'm going to ask the GAO, Ms. Williams, to comment. I don't know if inside the Governmental Accountability Office there's been discussion about the consequences of that language, but if there has been, I'd like to hear your commentary on it.
Based on what we were doing specific to AIG, this really, I'm not in a position to provide a specific response to that issue. But I would be more than happy if this is something we've looked at to provide an agency response for the record.
Well, as we pull up the language of the bill, and as I said, this isn't in the House version or the Senate version. This comes out of the conference committee report after Senator Olympia Snowe and Wyden attempted to put in on the Senate side. They added the language aimed at restricting bonuses over $100,000, those retroactive and prospective bonuses. And then to go through the provision again, this is the language that was put in behind the closed-door conference committee. It says, quote, the prohibition required under Clause I shall not be construed to prohibit any bonus payment required to be paid pursuant to a written employment contract executed on or before February 11th, 2009. Now that measure came back to the House and back to the Senate with that new provision in it. And my second question would be, why couldn't we pass legislation? And I believe the House Republicans have prepared legislation to do this. Why can't we pass legislation that would remove that provision in the stimulus package? And if we did, would that put us on firmer ground as we try to knock out these bonuses on AIG?
Once again, this is really outside of the scope of what we are specifically looking at in terms of AIG. So
but you're looking at the bonus issue, and I'm looking at the law that that attempts to prescribe us or attempts to prevent us from knocking down those bonuses, attempts to prevent regulators and other authorities from halting the payment of those bonuses. And I'm just saying, why don't we go back and reverse what was done in that closed-door session. And if we did that, clarify the law, maybe go back to Senator Olympia Snow's original language before it was taken out in the conference committee, I would think that that would put us on firmer ground then to prevent these bonuses from being paid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Royce.